On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, we can continue our candidate series leading up to the March 3rd, 2026 primary. We talked to Butch about his time growing up in Bat Cave, becoming an engineer, moving to Clayton in 1993, getting elected to the Clayton Town Council, ultimately why he ran for the county commissioners, what he thinks he's accomplished, and why he wants another 4-year term. So if you're interested in what your county commissioners are up to or why Butch Lawter wants to represent you for 4 more years, listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden, and on today's episode, we have County Commissioner Vice Chairman Butch Lawter. We're here to talk to Butch about his time on the county commissioner. He is running for re-election. This is part of our candidate series that we're running here up to the March 3rd, 2026 primary. Butch will have a primary opponent in Keith Branch, who will be on the ballot against him then. There is no Democrat, so the winner of the primary, as often as Johnston County, is going to be the winner of the election and will serve as a county commissioner through the year 2030. So before we do that, we'd like to ask you to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it be on YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, or any of the other social media channels of the Best of Johnston County podcast. The Best of Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for over 28 months. So go back and listen to our previous episodes, including our first 2 episodes, which Butch Lawter that ran in September and October of 2024, when he was the chairman of the county commissioners, and he was wearing some really cool shorts because we recorded that in the summer and it was like 100 degrees that day. Anyway, welcome, Butch.
Yeah, no shorts today, no clips and gear today.
Right, no clips and gear today, right. Last time you'd come from a picnic and didn't realize, I guess we did it on video. But anyway, YouTube is where we get thousands of views of each episode.
I know that now.
On YouTube, right? You got your jacket now, right?
Long pants, yeah.
So anyway, all right, so tell the people who you are, what you do.
So my name is Butch Lawter, originally from the western part of the state, born in Bat Cave, North Carolina. There's an actual place, Bat Cave. You can Google that. Lived in Spartanburg in South Carolina. That's my connection to Clemson. Moved to Raleigh, NC State. Graduate there. Worked in Raleigh for 6 years for an environmental consulting firm. And moved to Clayton in 1993 with my wife and 2 children at the time. Had my third, my son, here in Johnston County. Lived here since then. Was active in the community in Clayton, on the town council there for 14 years, starting in 1999. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was. And then in 2018, decided to run for county commissioner. Was successful and have served since then. And I will say, back in 90, I had no ambition to be a politician. In fact, I got asked by the mayor at the time, or told that I should run. Didn't have any clue what a town council person did. He hounded me for about 2 weeks. I agreed to it and didn't really know what I was getting into, but became, hooked is not the right word, but I found it was a passion that I had of being able to be involved and to serve the community through being an elected official.
Yeah, well, that was Doug McCormick, right?
It was Doug McCormick.
Right, golly. And Doug McCormick was mayor of Clayton when I moved here in 2000. But during that period of time while you were on the Clayton Town Council, really knew the county commissioners, the town of Clayton had some real serious financial problems.
Oh, yes.
And almost got taken over by the state and all that. I mean, what did you take from that experience into being the governance you do now on the county commissioners?
So a lot of it carried over because we did, I think in 97 is when Steve Biggs came on, the manager. And you're correct. I mean, the town of Clayton was about ready to be taken over by the local government commission because of poor finances. I mean, they had no money. The fund balance was non-existent. So from that, you start from a position of not having a lot and being able to look at budgets and really cut them, make sure they're lean. And then also look at, as a Republican, we don't want to raise taxes to put that on the back of people to pay for what we need. So it was a slow, incremental process, growth started happening. So you had some more revenue coming in, and it was just close financial. So that was one thing I took away is, you don't take those things for granted. 2008 came, and there was a belt tightening that took place. So the basics, I guess, monitoring the financial and budgeting was what I took away from that time.
Right. Well, and you're an engineer by training. You have a couple of engineering degrees, and I think you work for Withers Ravenel in your real life. We make sure we get that. All these commissioners, it pays almost nothing, so they all have real jobs. What do you do for Withers Ravenel?
Yeah, so,
I know you do some design. I don't know if you do design. I don't know.
No. So
I have no idea. There's so many different types of engineering.
So we have smarter people that do that stuff for me. So I am a civil engineer. I did mostly environmental work. I've done some geotechnical work. But I have migrated over the years away from the calculations and design work into managing people and projects and clients. So today I am a senior development officer at Withers Ravenel. I have 3 departments, practice areas, if you will. I have utilities, I have stormwater, and a little more nebulous one, funding and asset management. So basically that group is, you have local governments who are in search of grants. We have a really great team who is able to go out, connect grants to local governments, very successful at getting those. And so we build projects off of those. So that is it. Asset management is just what it sounds like. Yeah.
So I remember when you ran in 2018 and supported you then. Why did you run in 2018? And have you accomplished what you set out to accomplish? Now that we're at the end of your second term, you've been there 7 years. Have you done what you wanted to do?
So I felt like I checked a lot of boxes.
Okay.
I went back recently and watched the candidates forum from 2018. But the reason I ran for county commissioner is there was not a very good relationship between the town of Clayton and the county. And part of that was the commissioner that was representing District 7 at the time. So I remember vividly asking my fellow council members, is anybody going to run? The answer was no. And I said, well, I'm running. And some of the things I wanted to accomplish, that I said was updating the land use, many ordinances that were 2011, some maybe 2015, the land use plan, or ordinances, comprehensive transportation plan, recreation, which you and I talked a lot about over the years,
Yes.
And the quality of life. One of the things was starting a parks and open space for the county, not programming, but facilities. We started that simple as a public information officer. We didn't have one at the time. It was a foreign concept. In fact, we had commissioner. We don't want to argue with people on Facebook, which is exactly we don't. But now we can put information out. So I think the public is more informed about what we do.
Right.
We started live streaming our meetings. So those were some of the things that I wanted to accomplish that I feel like that we have. And the economic development was the other piece is, we were successful, but I think we've seen that success haven't grown. We've seen a lot of success recently. We just had the Vulcan Elements, 1,000 jobs at nearly $100,000 a year. And of course, our biopharmaceuticals continue to grow. The other thing that I thought I got an awakening on education and funding for that. It's not as simple as I want to help and I'm here to make it better. There's a lot of dynamics there, but I will say I do feel we've increased funding for our public schools. We've increased funding for community college. We've built an advanced manufacturing center. And probably the most thing that wasn't on my radar then, but it was part of the educational funding, was the Commissioner's Promise, where we've helped almost 2,000 students attend JCC tuition free for the last 3 years. And we've seen enrollment at JC over that same time period go up about 60%. So we are at unprecedented growth rates in the state of North Carolina there. So there's a lot of things to check. There's still some things we're close on the ordinances. So there's some things there that I still want to get accomplished.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in that answer. Golly, as you're going through that answer, I'm like, ask him about this, ask him about this, ask him about this. And, we could do this for 2 hours, but nobody would listen. I'm not Joe Rogan. So let's go back to the recreation. We've had the recreation, the head of the recreation on this podcast, Adrian O'Neill, twice. Recently, as just 6 months ago. The Cleveland Park now, they have started moving some dirt, and they're going to do phase 1. And so, which I think is a parking lot and maybe a pickleball
Yeah, I
court
think
and a retention
trails,
pond.
yeah, and trails, yeah,
A couple
walking
trails, right. That park, 50 million by the time it's built out. Does that get done? Where does $50 million come to do that park?
So so
To do it all the way. Now I know.
Yeah, so the initial piece has been grants and some. I think we've spent about $1 million, maybe when initial purchase of land, and basically it's been grants since then, matching funds for that. So we have really taken and fee in lieu, which is a developers fund that as they build, they can pay into the fee in lieu for parks and recreation. So we've taken all that, and I think it's about $4 million we're spending on the actual development of phase one of the park. But you're right, we're not going to grant our way to $50 million worth of improvements, and it's depending on what we wind up doing, it could be 30 to 60, but it's in that ballpark. But I think we're going to have to be innovative in how we approach that, because we're a big county. So, and here the park is in Cleveland. The folks in other parts of the county, well, I'm never going to use that, which is another side note. And I'm sure Adrian brought this up. People from all over the county come, and I'll just use my daughters. They live in this area, but they go to Four Oaks to the parks. They go to Clayton. They go to Smithfield. So, once you have a park, people will find their way here from surprisingly far away places. So I think that's part of it. And one thing that we've talked about early on in 2018, 2019 was a special tax district. I don't think that's off the table, but we need to find a way to be fair where, and I'm just going to say if 60% of the people within 5 miles are the ones using the park, that's probably their proportionate share. The other 40 from the rest of the county probably will need to come from, fee in lieu or some other form to match that. So it's not just like in, unfortunately in municipalities, they pay 100%. If you live outside a municipality, you can take advantage of their facilities for nothing. So we want to balance that out as we're looking around, and then wherever it is in the county, not just Cleveland, but if there's something in outside of Pine Level.
Well, I mean, I live in Cleveland, and I enjoy the Clayton parks. I enjoy Smithfield Park and Track, and my kids have played ball all over this county. So I mean, we've benefited, even though I don't pay Clayton taxes and stuff. So I understand that part of it. The school funding. I asked you about this when you were here 18 months ago. The school funding went in like 1 year from 70 million or 75 million to 115 million as the county portions of the schools. The school enrollment is flat because of the growth of homeschools and ALA and the charter schools and all of that stuff. Do you believe that the county has gotten a good value for that 115 million that they got? Because it was a big jump. And I know we got to do buses and stuff, but like that seemed like a lot.
Yeah, so this was like, I think 70 to 77, and then somewhere in the 90s, and then the 100, I think it's 115 or 16, 110 this time.
Okay.
So it's been over a few years, but yeah, that's the struggle, because we had COVID, you had federal money come in, inflated some things, got some things taken care of, and then that money went away. And so you're right. I mean, the growth in public schools, which includes charter schools, has been flat. And I want to say 400 students over the last 3 years. So really, so homeschooling is really big, private schools too. But so it has been flat. So that is, there were some internal arguments on what the final number for this year's budget should be. I will say I was on the losing end because I wanted a lower number, but there's 7 of us and 4 of us decide what happens. But I will say that the public schools over the last 4 years has come a long way with the transparency and the numbers that we have. And so I would love to have a funding formula like many counties have, where going into the year you have this much growth, the spending is going to increase by X percent. You do the simple math, and here's your number. We haven't gotten there yet. There is some willingness, I think, to discuss that with the school board. The Board of Commissioners, I think, is all in favor of that, to make it a lot less complicated and adversarial sometimes about what that is. But I think we're moving in that direction. But my basic philosophy is I look at what do we pay per student last year? What is the percentage growth expected for the next year? And what is some sort of regional inflation, and apply that to the per student and multiply the number of students and
But that's not what the board has done, though.
No,
I mean, that's what Butch has done, but that's not what the board has done.
That's my flow.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
so
Well, that's cool.
So that's where I
Right.
start.
Right. Is there now trust between this Board of Commissioners and that Board of Education? Because that has been a problem in this county for a long time. And I'm just curious, does this Board of Commissioners trust this Board of Education?
So I would say yes. And then again, I've been on there 7 years, and it has come a long way in that time, because now with their CFO, Stephen Britt, it is,
that guy is sharp.
We ask for information and we get it. And so it's not smoke and mirrors, and he's consistent. Not that we check, was it trust but verify?
Right.
That we do that, and our financial team checks and has been through the process. So I think the trust not only is board to board, it is staff to staff. And so I think that's been one of the biggest differences that I've seen over the years, is that level of trust has gone up. And I got to say kudos, as we were looking at Wilson's Mills High School and some of the recent projects, including Clayton High School, they took unprecedented measures to bring board members in, Board of Commissioners in, to their interview process and selection process to help look at architects and contractors to make decisions on who to select. And we've been involved throughout that process. So that is something that never had happened before. And again, we're the ones writing the check to them to build the schools. They build the schools.
Right.
So that in itself has made a big difference. And then while you've seen the building programs we've had, Clayton High School is a little out of sync, because we usually do a vote to bond, but because of Wilson Mills opening up and wanting to get rid of mobile classroom units, that we're sliding Clayton in.
Well, you're paying Clayton out of the general fund. You're not selling bonds. I mean, right. I mean, you're budgeted the money. You're going to sell bonds for it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
limited
that.
obligation bonds. Yeah. So typically it's GO bonds where it's voted on.
Okay.
This one, because of the timing, we're going to do limited obligation bonds. So it's still the same, and there's very little financial difference in the long run of what you pay back over time. So it is different.
Okay.
And so I think that's what both boards are like. Hey, we can't keep doing the same thing. Just like we're not building sprawling schools anymore. We're building schools up.
Correct.
So the same thing is, we're looking at a little bit different financing, not extensive, but just a different way of doing it.
Well, I think the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Education has kind of caught up on the school building now. The Cleveland High School expansion is almost done. We have the new Wilson's Mills Elementary School. Wilson's Mills High School is about to open here in August of 26. They're going to build a new Clayton High School on the campus of Clayton High School, and then tear down the old school. So I don't know that we need that many more school buildings. You've gotten rid of 80% of the mobile classrooms, I believe. So what does the county do next? We had Mike Rose on the podcast last week, and, him and I talked about the county needs $1 billion with a B dollars in buildings that are not schools. What are those? How do we pay for them?
I think that's $500 million.
Is it $500 million?
Yeah. But it still has a B in it.
I thought it was $1 billion, because I thought the DSS building was $350 million by itself.
So the billion is on the water facility.
Okay.
So that's $1 billion.
Okay.
But I will say one thing we did too to change things is we traditionally use design, bid, and build, which is a slow process. You get the surprise at the end if it's over budget. You get, if something you thought was going to be $125 million, you get a cost of $150 million. You're scrambling to figure out how to fix that. So with this CMAR process, construction manager at risk, you get a guaranteed maximum price, and along the way, if your numbers getting out of line, there's changes that can be made to reduce the cost. And so we use that, I think, on all the projects recently. Maybe not Cooper Elementary School, but we've used that process, and that has really been effective. We thought in Wilson Mills at one time during the process, it was $15 million over budget. And there was a lot of what in the world's going on. But we were able to correct it. Whereas if we had gone traditional process, we'd have found out it was $125 million, $15 million over budget at the date we opened the bid, and then you're trying to figure it out. So we have that. But back to your question about our facilities, in last February, we had a strategic planning session, and we prioritize our construction projects. DSS was the number one. So that's the first thing on the list. We've got judicial annex expansion and out there at the courthouse. And we have our admin building. So we've got a list of about 20 different things, but all in total, I think all the construction process buildings that we have, and I'm thinking that's going to be over 10 years, will be in today's dollars, about 500 million.
Okay. All right. So I knew the billion was out there. But you got to count the water plant too. So, I mean, what are we going to do about that? I mean, we could do this for hours, but I mean, we do have a water shortage, kind of. I mean, we're buying water from all over the place. Like, what's the plan there?
So, you want to finish the buildings?
Yeah. You finish the buildings.
So I'll say on the buildings, what we've done is especially during the budget process, we run financial models, I would say almost on a daily basis or hourly basis, it seems like sometimes, to look at. We have an unofficial fund balance level that we want to maintain of about 40 to 50%. I think we're about 55 to 60 right now. And so we look at phasing the projects in so that we're heading towards, because we don't want to lose our AAA bond rating, so we don't want to drop it and lose that. But we try to gradually come down and stage the project so that we're heading towards the 40, and then as we have some debt service paid off, it'll come back up. So we're trying to level that out at about 40%. So we look at that, but it will be through probably limited obligation bonds to pay those off, because what that does is, instead of me and you paying for it today, that the folks who are coming here later and going to need those services, or because of the financing over typically 20 years, they're able to pay for their part when they get here. So
right, I got you.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
So what is the plan for water?
So water, sewer, we've completed one expansion, I think last year. We've got another one in progress. I think we'll be finished next year, which added about another 4 million gallons in sewer treatment capacity. But really the real issue is water right now. I won't say we've allocated all we have, but we're close. And part of the problem on water is you've got what it takes on an average day, but you also have to factor in what you have on a peak day. And so therein lies the dilemma of being able to provide water on a peak day. And so the plan for that, we right now have a Lower Neuse water reclamation facility, which is basically almost in Wayne County. And so we pump the water 10 miles into our former rock quarry in Princeton, treat it, and then we send it to the rest of the county. And currently there's plans to send it back to Clayton, although Clayton is evaluating some other alternatives. So that may not be part of it, but that's your $800 million project there. So, but we also, as commission, regionalization, that was one thing back in 2018 that I talked about is regional. Actually, I talked about that in 1999, was regionalization. I haven't been very successful on that yet, but we are working on it now. Right. But we're really looking at Harnett County done as an alternative to get the water. And then as part of the interbasin transfer program, you can keep 2 million of it, but you have to send whatever's over that back. And so we're working with those through our staff and a consultant to figure out how do we tap into the Cape Fear and then send the water back through sewer. And Benson will be a big part of that. 4 Oaks done in Harnett County. So that is the plan. But the on that, you've got a separate, that's an enterprise fund. So that's not coming out of our tax
It's
dollars.
A user fee.
It's basically a user fee. We recently raised
you raised the rate for the water in the sewer.
Yeah. So
which
recently
y'all have done a lot.
So we recently raised because the state has a calculation that you can make to determine what those maximum fees are, system development fees. And we did that on the water. We increased the water, double the water. But our thought on that was we have people who are here that are paying, the rates now. They paid their system development fee when they came in, if there was one. But now you have new people moving in, and we didn't feel like it was fair for the existing customers to pay a higher rate and the new customers pay a lower rate that didn't pay for the cost of it. So we decided, hey, we're going to raise the system development fee to the maximum to cover some of those costs of future plant expansions, water line expansions, all that.
Okay.
So we did lower the sewer system development fee
Right.
this year, but that's lost in the shuffle.
I know, lost the
Because
shuffle.
the water
golly.
was tremendous increase.
All right, I got one or two more questions. I know this is longer than the usual Best of Johnston County podcast. The tax rate. Most of us got a 20% tax increase last year after the reevaluation. Some people got 50, 60, 70% tax increases. Some people in towns got 100% tax increases, like Benson and Selma. Princeton, people got almost an 80% tax increase. Now, those towns chose not to cut the rate as much as the county did, but it was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what's going to happen now? Why did we have to raise taxes on average 20% across the board? And what happens with that rate in the future?
So a lot of factors went into that. Let's start with the revaluation process, which is mandated. You know, it can be no longer than 8 years. We had just cut it from 8 to 6, and it's going to 4 now. But we saw historic revals across, it wasn't just Johnston County, it was across the state. And, you know, we hear a lot of conversation, well, it's because of the growth that we had. 70% was the average. But I have a commissioner friend in Pasquotank County, not a growing county. Their reval went up 40%. So it was a historic that was across the state. So we start there. We had seen 30%, I think, in this end of the county in 2019. And so that was part of it. So the numbers, that was a big number. And then tax rate is, you know, I was going to say financial stewardship is one of our priorities, which that's more than just the tax rate. We've talked about bond rating. We've talked about fund balance. So you've got to balance all of that with our existing need for projects that probably should have been done 20 years ago. So we're trying to, again, catch up like we are on so many things, but to get the projects done. So it was a combination of that. And revenue neutral would have been, you know, that was my initial goal until we started factoring in all those other things and wanting to keep our fund balance at 40% as we went through the construction. But the biggest, I guess, thing was there's uncertainty because and still today, we have hundreds of millions of dollars in property values that are under appeal. And we made our decision mid-June. And so there was more under appeal then. So there was a lot of unknowns in there. We weren't sure what, Clayton High School was going in. We were trying to figure out how to layer in these projects. So we went with a tax rate that we knew, was not revenue neutral. But I also had done a little bit of studying on my own and looked at, since 2018, for every county in the state, the history of their tax rate and their reval year. And what I noticed as a general trend was particularly the last 3 years, you saw a lot of counties drop the rate low. And I'm assuming they were getting to revenue neutral, that the next year the tax rate went up and thus the taxes. So it was a balance of future financial concerns and with current needs and knowing that with, you're talking about some people's property went up 100%. And so if you looked at individual cases, there were some that we would have to lower the tax rate to 30% to get them to be revenue neutral. And it just wasn't possible. So we picked our medicine, which was still, the end result, and we probably couched it the wrong way, is we touted historic tax cut, but as
tax
you said,
rate cut, but it wasn't a tax cut.
Tax rate
because
cut, that is
it was.
right.
I think you took in. It's about 20% more, and the budget ended up being 420 million. I think 7 years ago it was 220 million. We had a lot of growth, and we're going to go through what happened with that 200 million. But a lot of growth has happened, and I think the county's in good shape. I think the 40% fund balance is insane. I think it's too high. I don't think we need $250 million in a fund balance. You and I disagree on that. We're not going to agree. I think the government is there to provide service to the people as best as possible. That money's sitting there. You don't have to have 40% fund balance to have a AAA bond rating. We're like one of 3 counties in the whole state that hasn't one anywhere near there. But, I know you're conservative. You want to save rainy day funds, all that, but it is what it is.
So I will say that, and even though we disagree on the 40%, it has been as high as 70%. So for those of us that came on since then, is we felt like 70% was just putting money away, and again, not using it to provide services to the people, or more importantly, giving the people their money back.
Right.
Yeah, so you keep your money.
Right.
You keep your money, and we'll head towards the 40%.
Why do you want to do this for 5 more years? Why do you want to finish out your term and do it for 4 more?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I feel like the things that I've started, and some of them I've accomplished, there's still regionalization is a big thing for me, that I want to make sure that I get that to a place where we can say we have a regional system, or we are well on our way to a regional system. The recreation is a big piece for it. I mean, make sure that we can continue to connect the dots to get Mountain to Sea Trail, East Coast Greenway, because it does provide economic opportunities, little jobs that form because of that tourism. And I'll throw in, we've got a great executive director for our Visitors Bureau now, Aaron Mullins, who's come in with some great ideas.
And he was a guest on our podcast a few weeks ago. He is a rock star.
Yes, he is.
We are very fortunate to have Aaron
Absolutely.
Mullins.
So there's still some things on the transparency with the PIO and making sure we're getting all the information out there that we can, again, Parks and Rec, and then just catching up on some of I kind of feel like we're moving in a positive direction. And when I was chairman, I want to keep my foot on the gas. And I think that's historically, we've seen not a foot on the gas and a lot of projects be delayed. And again, we're trying to catch up and get some things to provide the services, because the expectation level of the public is the service level is not going down.
Correct.
It's going up. So,
correct. You're absolutely right.
And you know how it was with Parks and Recreation. That was the way the people who are here, who have now experienced some of the parks, greenways, trails, and all that used to have to go to Raleigh, that are now able to do it here. And so I hear that a lot is we love it. We love having the trails. We love having the park to take our kids, our grandkids in my case.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's awesome. All right, last question we ask everybody. What do you love most about Johnston County?
Again, the same thing I said last time. The people. Don't know that campaigning is the top thing on anybody's list. Definitely the fundraising is not. But getting around the county and being able to talk to people and listen. And I think that's the biggest thing is, listening to the people, because my experience has been, people want to be heard. And I think that if you are out there and listening and people have a chance, I think some of them don't expect anything. They just want to know that you listened. And so, but you campaign, that's the best part of campaigning, is being out with the people, and I always enjoy that.
Well, I mean, you go everywhere. I mean, you're somewhere 4 or 5 nights a week. I mean, I don't go anywhere you're not there. Fire departments, Christmas parades. I mean, people can't say they can't get in touch with Butch Lawter and get an opinion or share. I mean, golly, I complain all the time to you and Patrick Harris and Mike Rose and anybody that'll listen. So I do appreciate how much y'all are out there and how much you do and everything you've done. You've been on the JCC Board of Trustees for the last 7 years. You've done a tremendous amount for JCC. We didn't get into that today, but I appreciate that. We were on the Board of Trustees of JCC together. It's amazing what's going on there with Dr. Lundquist and everything. So I think the county's doing great. Personally, I think it's awesome. I think I enjoy living here. I enjoy the growth and all of that stuff, and it's going to continue. And I think y'all done a pretty good job managing. I know there's difference of opinions about that, but you're not going to stop it. And
I think that when you boil it down, it's just like most things. 80% of things we agree on. The 20% we may have a big disagreement on, but I think for the most part we agree on. And I will say the other thing we didn't even talk about was the ag side of things, the agriculture side of things. And one of the things that I kind of stumbled onto was, I was thinking one day, Parks and Recs have fee and lieu. Why can't we do that for farms? And then I was talking to Commissioner Stevens, and she's like, we already have that with the PUV rollback. And so I said, hey, let's take that rollback money and put it into farmland preservation. And through soil and water conservation folks and TLC, we've preserved 3,000 acres in the last few years and have some more on the books. So
well, that's great. That's great. That's great. Well, we'd like to thank Butch Lawter for coming and being our guest on this week's of the Best of Johnston County podcast. He will be on the Republican primary ballot for the District 7 Commissioner race against Keith Branch on March 3rd. Early voting starts February the 12th, 2026, so just in a couple of weeks. There is no Democrat, so the winner of the primary will be the winner. If you're an unaffiliated voter, you can go and vote and choose a Republican ballot, or if you're a Republican voter, you can vote in this race. Unfortunately, Democrat voters are not going to be able to vote in the Republican primary, and unfortunately, that is the only race there is. So the winner will be declared on March the 3rd, 2026, and they will take this term, starts December the 7th, 2026, and runs through early December 2030. And so do your homework. We're going to have Mr. Branch on here in a few weeks and decide who you want to vote for there. Speaking of campaigning, how can people get in touch with your campaign and learn more about you?
So they can go to my website, butchlawter.com. You can find out about me there. It's got my social media connections there. Also make donations if you need for my campaign. And then you can go on social media. It's either Vote Butch Lawter, Elect Butch Lawter, on all the social media platforms. So you can find me there. And if you want to, you can call me at 919-218-2834. May not be able to talk right away, but I'll get back to you.
All right. If you would not mind liking and subscribing, as we mentioned earlier, this podcast where you receive it, give us a 5-star review down below. Tag us in your Instagram stories, Best of Johnston County. That will help us grow our reach. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.